Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the Harmony's edge, watching two alien species argue about mining rights on some distant planet. He had done this kind of work for 15 years now, and it never got easier. The blue-skinned Keltari were waving their forearms around, making angry clicking sounds. The tall gray Nexari just stood there with their big black eyes, speaking in their slow, deep voices. "Captain Morrison," said Dr. Lisa Grant from her seat next to him. She was the ship's expert on alien cultures and languages. "I think we're making progress. The Keltari are willing to share the northern mining areas if the Nexari give them exclusive rights to the southern regions." Jake nodded. "Good work, Lisa. How long do you think this will take?" "Maybe another hour or two. These disputes usually, and will once both sides realize they can both make money. That was how things worked in the galaxy these days. For 1,000 years, there had been peace. Real peace. No wars, no big fights, just small arguments like this one that humans helped solve. Earth had become the place where everyone came when they had problems. Humans were good at listening and finding solutions that made everyone happy. Jake remembered learning about the old days in school. Before humans joined the Galactic Coalition, there had been wars all the time. Species fought over planets, resources, trade routes, and sometimes just because they didn't like each other. But when humans arrived, everything changed. Humans were different. They didn't want to conquer anyone or take anything by force. They just wanted to help. The alarm started, screaming. Jake jumped up from his chair. Red lights flashed all over the bridge. Lisa dropped her tablet and stared at the main screen. The two alien groups stopped arguing and looked around in confusion. "What's happening?" Jake shouted over the noise. Lieutenant Ben Walsh, the ship's communications officer, was pressing buttons frantically. "Captain, I'm getting emergency signals from everywhere. Something big just jumped into the system." The main screen changed from showing the conference room to showing space outside. Jake felt his stomach drop. Ships. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They were huge, dark, and covered in weapons. They looked like nothing Jake had ever seen before, and he had seen ships from every species in the galaxy. "Those aren't coalition ships," Lisa whispered. "No kidding," Jake said. "Ben, are you getting any communication from them?" "Yes, sir, coming through now. It's being broadcast to everyone in the system." The screen filled with the image of something that looked like a nightmare. The creature had red skin, 6 eyes, and teeth like broken glass. It wore what looked like military armor covered in spikes. When it spoke, its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "I am Supreme Commander Krex of the Vorthak Hegemony," the creature said. "For centuries we have watched your pathetic coalition from beyond the rim of this galaxy. We have seen your weakness. Your peace has made you soft. Your cooperation has made you vulnerable." Jake felt Lisa grab his arm. The aliens in the conference room were making frightened sounds. "The time of peace is over," Commander Krex continued. "All species in this galaxy will submit to hegemony rule. You have 30 of your standard days to surrender completely. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species." The screen changed to show one of the moons near the station. It was a small rocky thing with no life on it. Jake had seen it through the windows many times. A beam of red light shot out from one of the Vorthak ships. The moon simply disappeared. Not exploded, not broken apart, it was just gone, turned into space dust in less than a second. "This is what happens to those who resist," Commander Krex said. 30 days. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. The bridge was silent except for the sound of alarms still going off. Jake turned them off with a shaking hand. "Captain," Ben said quietly, "I'm getting messages from all over the system. The other ships are asking what we should do." Jake looked at Lisa. She looked back at him with wide eyes. They both knew what this meant. 1,000 years of peace was over. War had come to the galaxy, and it looked like it was going to be worse than anything in the history books. "Get me a direct line to Earth," Jake said. "Emergency priority." "Yes, sir." Jake waited while Ben set up the connection. His mind was racing. The Vorthak ships were unlike anything he had ever seen. Their weapons could destroy moons. How could the Coalition fight against something like that? Most of their ships were built for exploration and trade, not war. They had some police ships and patrol vessels, but nothing that could match what he had just seen. Connection established, Captain. This is Captain Morrison of the Harmony's Edge, Jake said. I need to speak with Admiral Carter immediately. One moment, Captain. The wait felt like forever. Finally, Admiral Ben Carter's face appeared on the screen. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. Jake had met him a few times at diplomatic functions. Carter was Earth's senior military representative, though that was mostly a ceremonial job these days, Captain Morrison. Carter said calmly. I assume you're calling about our new visitors. Admiral, did you see what they did? They destroyed a moon like it was nothing. Their fleet is enormous. What are we going to do? Carter smiled. Actually smiled. Don't worry, Captain. We'll handle it. Handle it? Admiral, with respect, how? Our fleet is designed for peacekeeping and exploration. These Vorthak have weapons that can destroy planets. Captain, I need you to relay a message to the other Coalition representatives in your area. Tell them that Earth politely declines the Vorthak ultimatum. Jake stared at the screen. Declines? Admiral, are you sure you understand the situation? Perfectly, Captain. Also, please inform the other species that they might want to step back and let us handle this. Things could get a bit messy. What's the plan, Admiral? What ships are we sending? What weapons do we have? Carter's smile got wider. Don't worry about that, Captain. Just make sure you and Dr. Grant are somewhere safe. Oh, and Captain? Yes, sir? You might want to watch the news over the next few weeks. It should be quite entertaining. The transmission ended. Jake stared at the blank screen, then looked at Lisa. Did he just say entertaining? Lisa asked. I think he did. All around them, the other ships in the system were broadcasting messages of panic and fear. The alien governments were calling emergency meetings. Some species were already talking about surrender, but from Earth there was only silence. And somehow that silence was more frightening than all the Vorthak weapons combined. Jake had a strange feeling that there was something about humans that the galaxy didn't know, something that had been hidden for a very long time. And now, after 1,000 years of peace, the galaxy was about to find out what that something was. General Ryan Hayes opened his eyes for the first time in 800 years. The cryogenic chamber hissed as it released the cold air that had kept him sleeping. He sat up slowly, feeling his muscles remember how to work. The last thing he remembered was going to sleep in the year 1357, when the galaxy was still new to humans and peace was just beginning. A young technician helped him out of the chamber. General Hayes, sir, welcome back. The date is 21/57. You've been activated for emergency. Protocol 7, Ryan nodded. He had volunteered for the Deep Archive program centuries ago, along with millions of other soldiers. They had agreed to sleep until the galaxy needed them again. During their sleep, machines had kept their minds sharp, teaching them new things, showing them new battles, keeping their skills ready. How many of us are awake? Ryan asked. 50 million so far, sir. More coming online every hour. Ryan walked to the window and looked out at Earth. What he saw made him smile. The planet looked different than when he had gone to sleep. Strange structures were rising from the ground, growing like metal trees. Weapons platforms unfolded from mountains. Space elevators that had been disguised as research stations were now showing their true purpose. Beautiful, isn't it? Said a voice behind him. Ryan turned to see Colonel Amy Brooks walking toward him. She had been awakened an hour earlier and was already in her uniform. Amy had been his friend before they went to sleep. She was one of the best military minds he had ever known. Amy, good to see you. What's the situation? The Vorthak hegemony has given us 30 days to surrender. That was 5 days ago. We have 25 days left. And our response? Amy grinned. We told them no. Ryan laughed. Of course we did. What else is happening? Come with me. You need to see the Genesis Vault. They took a transport deeper underground than Ryan had ever been. The tunnels were huge, big enough for massive vehicles. They passed thousands of people, all working frantically but with purpose. Everyone seemed to know exactly what they were doing. How long has this been going on? Ryan asked. Since the day we joined the coalition, Amy said. We've been preparing for this moment for 1,000 years. The transport stopped at a massive door marked Genesis Vault Level 1. Amy pressed her hand to a scanner and the door opened. What? Ryan saw inside made his jaw drop. Ships. Thousands of them. They filled a space so large he couldn't see the end of it. But these weren't like any ships he had seen before. They were sleek, deadly, and beautiful. They looked like they were built for one purpose: war. My God, Ryan whispered. Level 1 holds our fighters and small attack ships, Amy said. Level 2 has our cruisers and destroyers. Level 3 has our battleships and carriers. Level 4 has our planet killers. Planet killers? We figured if someone was going to threaten to destroy planets, we should be able to do it better than them. They walked past the ships. Ryan could see crews working on them, loading weapons, running tests. The ships hummed with power that he could feel in his bones. Where did all this come from, he asked. Dr. Simon Clark can explain it better than I can. He's been running the Genesis project since we joined the coalition. They found Dr. Clark in a control room overlooking the vast ship bay. He was a thin man with gray hair and excited eyes. When he saw Ryan, he smiled widely. General Hayes, I've been waiting 800 years to show you this. Dr. Clark, how is this possible? How did we build all this without anyone knowing? Simple, Clark said. We told everyone we were building it. We just didn't tell them what it was really for. Clark led them to a huge screen showing the galaxy. Red dots marked human colonies, space stations, and research facilities. Every human settlement has been part of the Genesis project, Clark said. Those mining operations on distant planets, they were gathering materials for ship construction. Those research stations studying alien technology, they were learning how to build better weapons. Those cultural exchange programs where humans lived with other species, they were studying alien military tactics and finding weaknesses. Ryan stared at the screen. We've been studying the entire galaxy for 1,000 years. Not just studying, learning, improving. We've taken the best military technology from every species and made it better. We've studied every war, every battle, every conflict in galactic history. We know how every species fights, what they're good at, and where they're weak. Amy pointed to another screen showing ship designs. These fighters use Keltari speed technology, but improved. These cruisers have Nexari shield generators, but stronger. These battleships have weapons based on 17 different alien designs, but more powerful than any of them. But why keep it secret? Ryan asked. Because peace was real, Clark said. We didn't want war. We wanted to prevent it. The best way to prevent war is to be so prepared for it that no one wants to fight you. A young officer ran up to them. Dr. Clark, Captain Davis is ready for the first test flight. Excellent. General Hayes, would you like to see one of our new ships in action? They went to an observation deck. Outside, Ryan could see a ship unlike anything he had ever imagined. It was smooth and fast-looking, covered in weapons that seemed to grow from its hull like parts of a living thing. That's the Wrathbringer, Amy said. Captain Luke Davis is our best test pilot. The ship moved away from the station and into open space. Suddenly, 3 Vorthak fighters appeared. They had been scouting the system, trying to see what humans were doing. Should we warn Captain Davis? Ryan asked. He knows they're there, Clark said. This will be a good test. The Vorthak fighters moved to attack. They were fast and deadly, with weapons that could destroy most coalition ships easily. But the Wrathbringer didn't run or hide. It danced. Ryan watched in amazement as the human ship moved through space like it was dancing to music only it could hear. The Vorthak weapons couldn't touch it. The ship seemed to know where every shot would be before it was fired. Then the Wrathbringer fired back. 3 quick shots, so fast Ryan almost missed them. The Vorthak fighters simply stopped existing. How fast did it destroy them? Ryan asked. 2.3 seconds, Clark said proudly. And Captain Davis was taking his time. Ryan felt something he hadn't felt in centuries. Hope. Real hope. How many ships do we have? Enough, Amy said. More than enough. What about the other coalition species? Are they helping? Clark shook his head. They're too scared. Most of them are already talking about surrender. They think the Vorthak are too powerful. But we're not telling them about our preparations? Not yet, Amy said. Let them be scared a little longer. When the time comes, they'll understand why we stayed calm. Ryan looked out at Earth. The planet was transforming before his eyes. Defense platforms rose from the oceans. Weapons arrays emerged from the poles. The moon was opening up to reveal shipyards that had been hidden for centuries. The Vorthak think they're attacking a peaceful planet, Ryan said. They are, Clark said. Earth is still peaceful. We don't want to fight. But if someone forces us to fight, we're going to do it. Better than anyone else in the galaxy. An alarm sounded. The officer from before ran back to them. Dr. Clark, we're getting reports from all over human space. The awakening is complete. All Deep Archive personnel are active. All Genesis facilities are operational. All ships are ready. Clark nodded. Thank you. Send a message to Admiral Carter. Tell him the humans are ready to go to work. Ryan smiled. For 1,000 years, the galaxy had known humans as peaceful mediators and helpful diplomats. They had no idea what humans were really capable of. The Vorthak had made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had threatened the one species that had spent a millennium preparing for exactly this moment. The awakening was complete. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans could really do. Fleet Admiral Tony Martinez stood in front of the camera, adjusting his uniform one last time. Behind him, the bridge of the massive battleship Victory hummed with quiet activity. Officers worked at their stations, preparing for what would be the most important broadcast in galactic history. Admiral, we're ready to transmit, said Communications Officer Sarah Wells. The signal will reach every coalition world and every Vorthak ship in the galaxy. Tony nodded. Begin transmission. The red light on the camera turned on. Tony looked directly into it, his face calm and confident. He had practiced this speech many times, but he knew the words by heart. Citizens of the galaxy, he began. This is Fleet Admiral Martinez of the Human Defense Fleet. 5 days ago, the Vorthak hegemony delivered an ultimatum to our peaceful coalition. They demanded surrender. They threatened destruction. They demonstrated their weapons by destroying a moon. Tony paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. In living rooms and government buildings on 1,000 worlds, beings were watching and listening. Today, humanity delivers its response. Tony picked up a tablet from his desk. Supreme, Commander Krex, I want to thank you for the excellent training exercise you've provided. In the past 5 days, we have observed your fleet movements, studied your ship designs, and analyzed your tactical decisions. I must say we are disappointed. On Vorthak ships across the galaxy, commanders were staring at their screens in confusion. This was not the response they had expected. Your approach to our system was predictable, Tony continued, reading from his tablet like he was giving a school report. You entered through the most obvious jump point, arranged your ships in a standard attack formation that we learned about in our first-year military classes, and broadcast your ultimatum using unencrypted communications that we intercepted 3 hours before you sent them. Tony looked up from his tablet. Commander Krex, your ship, the Dreadnought, is currently positioned at coordinates 4.7 by 8.3 by 2.1. You have 847 ships in your main fleet, 23 scout vessels spread throughout our system, and 6 command ships hiding behind the gas giant in Sector 7. Did you really think we couldn't see you? On the bridge of the Dreadnought, Commander Krex was screaming at his officers. How did the humans know exactly where every ship was located? Their scouts were using the best stealth technology in the hegemony. Your weapons are impressive, Tony said. That moon destruction was quite a show. However, we should point out that it took you 12.7 seconds to charge your main weapon, during which time your ship was completely vulnerable. Also, you wasted enough energy destroying that small moon to power a coalition city for 6 months. Efficiency has never been your strong point, has it? Tony set down his tablet and looked directly into the camera again. Commander Krex, on behalf of humanity and the Galactic Coalition, I formally invite you and your forces to surrender now, before you embarrass yourselves further. The transmission switched to a different view. Now the screen showed Dr. Rachel Stone, a cheerful woman with short brown hair, standing in what looked like a school classroom. "Hello, everyone," Dr. Stone said brightly. "I'm Dr. Stone from the Human Psychological Warfare Division. I wanted to share something fun with you all." The screen changed to show a playground on Earth. Human children, maybe 10 or 12 years old, were playing a game with toy spaceships. But this wasn't just any game. The children were recreating famous battles from galactic history with perfect accuracy. "This is little Jimmy Parker," Dr. Stone said, as the camera focused on a boy moving toy ships around a sandbox. "Jimmy is recreating the Battle of Vegas 7, where the hegemony defeated the Rigel Defense Force 300 years ago. Jimmy, can you show everyone what the Rigel commanders did wrong?" The boy looked up at the camera and smiled. "They put their big ships in front, but that made them easy targets. If they had used their fast ships to attack from the sides while their big ships stayed back, they would have won easy. And how would you beat the hegemony formation, Jimmy?" Jimmy moved his toy ships around. "Simple. You use decoy signals to make them think your main fleet is here, but really it's here. Then when they turn to attack the fake fleet, your real ships hit them from behind. The hegemony always falls for that trick." Dr. Stone smiled at the camera. "Jimmy learned that strategy in 2nd grade. All human children study military history and tactics as part of their basic education. They find it quite easy." The scene changed to show another child, a girl named Emma Cole who was about 8 years old. She was playing with more toy ships, but these looked like Vorthak designs. "Emma, what do you think of the Vorthak fleet formation we saw 5 days ago?" Emma wrinkled her nose. "It's really bad. They put all their big ships together, so one good attack could hurt all of them at once, and they left their supply ships way in the back with no protection. Anyone could just fly around and blow up their food and fuel. What would you do differently?" "I'd spread the big ships out more, and I'd hide some little ships near the supply ships to protect them. Also, I wouldn't tell everyone my plan on the radio where enemies can hear it." The broadcast returned to Admiral Martinez. "As you can see, human children understand warfare better than the hegemony's finest generals. This is not meant as an insult. It's simply a fact." The screen split to show Captain Megan Foster standing on the bridge of her ship, the Silent Thunder. Behind her, stars were visible through the windows. "Captain Foster," Admiral Martinez said, "please tell our viewers where you are right now." "Captain," Foster smiled, "I'm currently in the middle of the Vorthak home fleet, about 50 meters from Commander Krex's personal ship. We've been here for 3 hours." The Vorthak commanders watching the broadcast began screaming orders. Their sensors showed nothing. No human ship had been detected in their formation. "How long could you stay there undetected?" Martinez asked. "As long as we want, sir. Our stealth systems are quite good. We've actually been taking pictures." The screen showed crystal-clear images of Vorthak ships from impossibly close range. "Would you like us to deliver some dinner invitations while we're here?" "That won't be necessary, Captain. Please return to safe distance." "Yes, sir. Transmitting our message now." Every Vorthak ship in the home fleet suddenly received the same transmission. "We've been watching. Have a nice day." The Silent Thunder appeared on their sensors for exactly 2 seconds, just long enough for them to see it, then vanished again. Their weapons couldn't even target it before it was gone. "Admiral," Martinez looked back at the camera. "Commander Krex, you have 25 days remaining in your ultimatum. We suggest you use that time to reconsider your position. If you choose to proceed with your invasion, please know that we will defend ourselves." Tony's expression became serious. "However, I want to make something clear to the other species of the galaxy. Humans do not want war. We have spent 1,000 years working for peace, and we would prefer to continue that work. But if war is forced upon us, we will fight it properly." The screen showed images of the massive defense platforms rising from Earth's surface, the fleets emerging from hidden bases, the millions of soldiers awakening from their long sleep. "We have been preparing for this day for 1,000 years, Martinez said. "Not because we wanted it to come, but because we knew it eventually would. There is always someone in the galaxy who believes that peace is weakness, that cooperation is vulnerability. Tony looked directly into the camera again. They are wrong. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, beings sat in stunned silence. The humans had just calmly explained to a massive invasion force exactly how poorly planned their attack was, demonstrated that human children could outthink hegemony generals, and proved that human ships could appear anywhere undetected. On the Vorthak command ship, Commander Krex was in a rage. Impossible. This is all lies and tricks. Humans are weak. They have been peaceful for 1,000 years. His tactical officer, a younger Vorthak named Sub-Commander Vex, was studying the sensor readings from the human stealth ship. Commander, how did they get so close without us detecting them? It doesn't matter. We have the largest fleet in galactic history. We have weapons that can destroy planets. These humans think they can frighten us with words in children's games. But privately, Krex was worried. In all his years of conquest, no enemy had ever responded to his ultimatums with such calm confidence. Most species begged for mercy or made desperate threats. The humans had given him a lecture like he was a student who had failed a test. Sub-Commander Vex was even more concerned. He had studied the human response carefully. Their knowledge of Vorthak positions and tactics was impossibly complete. Their technology seemed far more advanced than anything in their public records, and their psychological warfare was devastating, making the mighty hegemony look foolish in front of the entire galaxy. Commander, Vex said quietly, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. Never, Krex roared. We will crush these humans and their arrogant words. Prepare the full invasion fleet. In 25 days we will show the galaxy what happens to those who mock the hegemony. But as he gave the order, Krex couldn't shake the feeling that he was making a terrible mistake. The humans weren't acting like any enemy he had ever faced. They were acting like they knew something he didn't, and that terrified him more. The Vorthak invasion fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a storm of metal and fire. 3,000 ships spread across space, their weapons charged and ready. Commander Krex stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the small, blue planet that had dared to mock the mighty hegemony. At last, he growled, today we will show these arrogant humans what real power looks like. But as his fleet moved toward Earth, something strange happened. A single human ship appeared in front of them. It was sleek and beautiful, painted white with blue stripes. It looked more like a pleasure yacht than a warship. Incoming transmission, announced his communications officer. The screen filled with the image of a human man in a neat uniform. He had kind eyes and a friendly smile like someone greeting visitors at a party. Good morning, the human said cheerfully. I'm Captain Steve Johnson of the human defense ship Eternal Vigilance. Welcome to the Sol system. We've been expecting you. Krex stared at the screen. You dare to welcome us? We are here to destroy you. Oh, we know, Captain Johnson said, still smiling. That's why we've prepared something special for you. We want to make sure you have the most educational experience possible. Captain Johnson held up a tablet. I've taken the liberty of mapping out the best attack routes to Earth. You'll want to avoid the asteroid field in Sector 3. It's quite dense and could damage your ships. The route through Sector 7 offers excellent visibility and multiple tactical options. What kind of trick is this? Krex demanded. No trick at all, Johnson replied. We simply want to ensure our guests receive the finest military education the galaxy can provide. Please follow the suggested routes. We've cleared them of space debris for your convenience. Sub-Commander Vex leaned close to Krex. Commander, this has to be a trap. Of course it's a trap, Krex snapped. But what can one ship do against our entire fleet? All ships, attack Formation 7, destroy that vessel and advance on Earth. The Vorthak fleet surged forward, but instead of running or fighting, the Eternal Vigilance simply moved aside and began broadcasting music. Classical human music filled the communication channels, soft and beautiful. Attention Vorthak fleet, came Captain Johnson's voice over the music. You are now entering the first training zone. Please observe proper formation spacing. We will begin with basic maneuver evaluation. Suddenly, space around the Vorthak fleet came alive. Human ships appeared everywhere, but they weren't attacking. They were dancing. Lieutenant Susan Parker led her squadron of fighters in a ballet through the Vorthak formation. Her ships moved like birds in flight, weaving between the enemy vessels with impossible grace. The Vorthak gunners tried to target them, but the human ships seemed to know where every shot would be before it was fired. "How are they moving like that?" Sub-Commander Vex whispered, watching the display in amazement. "Impossible," Krex muttered. "No ship can maneuver like that." "Attention, students," came a new voice over the radio. This was Admiral Helen Wright, speaking from the Sol Defense Command. "Today's lesson is on the importance of proper formation discipline. Please observe how Squadron Leader Parker exploits gaps in your defensive arrangement." As if to demonstrate, Lieutenant Parker's fighters suddenly accelerated through a gap in the Vorthak formation, their weapons firing with surgical precision. 3 Vorthak destroyers exploded, but the human ships were already gone, dancing away to safety. "Note how the attacking force used speed and timing to strike at the weakest point," Admiral Wright continued, like a teacher explaining a math problem. "This is a classic example of why maintaining proper spacing is essential to fleet defense." Commander Krex screamed orders at his fleet. "All ships, tight formation, close those gaps." But as soon as his ships moved closer together, a new group of human vessels appeared. These were larger ships, cruisers and destroyers, led by Commander Carl Mitchell's carrier Human Pride. "Excellent," Admiral Wright's voice continued. "By closing formation, the enemy has created a new vulnerability. Commander Mitchell, please demonstrate the cluster weakness exploitation." The Human Pride launched its fighters, but these weren't ordinary attack runs. The small ships moved in perfect coordination, like parts of a single organism. They struck the Vorthak formation at dozens of points simultaneously, each attack precisely timed to support the others. The Vorthak ships found themselves caught in a web of coordinated strikes. Every time they turned to face one group of attackers, another group hit them from a different direction. Their weapons couldn't keep up with the human ship's impossible movements. "This is the beauty of proper tactical coordination," Admiral Wright explained to her galactic audience. "Each element of the attack supports every other element. Notice how the human forces turn the enemy's defensive strength into a weakness." Sub-Commander Vex watched his tactical display in horror. They were losing ships, but the humans weren't just destroying them. They were teaching the entire galaxy how it was being done. "Commander," he said urgently, "we should retreat and regroup." "Never," Krex roared. "All ships, maximum firepower, destroy everything." The Vorthak fleet opened fire with everything they had. Space filled with energy beams and explosions. For a moment it looked like the humans might be overwhelmed by sheer firepower. But then something beautiful happened. The human ships began to sing. Not literally, but their movements became so perfectly coordinated that they seemed to dance to music only they could hear. Captain Johnson's eternal vigilance led the dance, moving through the storm of weapons fire like it was walking through a gentle rain. "Observe the defensive movement patterns," Admiral Wright's voice continued calmly, even as explosions lit up space around her fleet. "Proper tactical awareness allows a smaller force to avoid damage while maintaining offensive capability." The human ships flowed around the Vorthak weapons like water around stones. Every shot seemed to miss by inches. Every missile found empty space where a human ship had been moments before, and while they danced, they fought back. Human weapons fired with impossible accuracy, each shot carefully placed to disable rather than destroy. Vorthak ships found their engines damaged, their weapons offline, their life support failing. They weren't being destroyed, they were being carefully taken apart. "This is impossible," Krex screamed. "How can they move like that? How can they know where our shots will be?" Commander Mitchell's voice came over the radio, calm and professional. "It's quite simple, really. We've been studying your weapons and tactics for centuries. We know exactly how your targeting systems work, how fast your weapons fire, and how your commanders think." A group of human fighters swept past the Vorthak flagship, their weapons carving precise lines across its hull. They weren't trying to destroy the ship. They were writing words on its surface. "What does it say?" Krex demanded. Sub-Commander Vex read the human writing burned into their hull. It says, "Could do better. Please see instructor after class." The battle continued, but it wasn't really a battle anymore. It was a demonstration. The humans were showing the galaxy exactly how thoroughly they had mastered the art of war. Every move was calculated, every strike was precise, every maneuver was perfect. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Wright announced, to her galactic audience, "this concludes today's lesson on tactical superiority through proper preparation. The Vorthak fleet has provided an excellent example of what happens when military doctrine becomes stagnant." Commander Krex looked around at what remained of his mighty invasion force. Half his ships were disabled or destroyed. The other half were trapped in a web of human vessels that could strike from any direction at any time. "This is not possible," he whispered. "We are the hegemony. We are the greatest military force in the galaxy." "You were," came Captain Johnson's gentle voice. "But you stopped learning, you stopped growing. You believed that having big weapons and many ships was enough." The human ships began to withdraw, forming a perfect sphere around the remaining Vorthak vessels. They weren't attacking anymore, just waiting. "The battle is over," Admiral Wright announced. "Vorthak forces, you are defeated. We invite you to surrender with honor." Sub-Commander Vex looked at his commander. Krex was staring at the tactical display, his face pale with shock and understanding. "Commander," Vex said quietly, "they could have destroyed us all in the first 5 minutes, couldn't they?" Krex nodded slowly. "They were playing with us, teaching the galaxy. We weren't fighting a battle. We were part of a lesson." For the first time in his life, the mighty Commander Krex understood what it meant to be truly outmatched. The humans hadn't just defeated his fleet. They had made it look easy while explaining exactly how they were doing it. And somehow that was more terrifying than any weapon could ever be. 3 months after the battle, Commander Krex stood in a classroom on Mars, wearing a simple student uniform instead of his spiked armor. Around him sat beings from across the galaxy, former Vorthak warriors, coalition diplomats, and even some of the human children who had embarrassed him so badly during the war. At the front of the classroom, General Kevin Adams was explaining basic military strategy using a simple holographic display. Krex found himself taking notes like a first-year student. "The key to understanding warfare," General Adams said, "is not learning how to fight. It's learning when fighting is unnecessary." A young Vorthak warrior raised his hand. "But General Adams, how can we be strong if we don't fight?" Adams smiled. "Excellent question, Cadet Vorth. Commander Krex, would you like to answer that?" Krex stood up slowly. 3 months ago, he would have been humiliated to be called upon like a schoolboy. Now he understood that learning was not shameful. It was essential. "True strength," Krex said carefully, "comes from being so prepared that your enemies choose not to fight you at all." "Very good," Adams said. "And why is that better than winning battles? Because if you never have to fight, no one dies. No ships are destroyed. No resources are wasted. Everyone can focus on building instead of destroying." Adams nodded approvingly. "Outstanding, Commander. You're learning quickly." Later that day, Krex walked through the corridors of the Galactic Military Academy. The building was magnificent, with windows that looked out over the red landscape of Mars. Students from dozens of species walked together, sharing ideas and learning from each other. He found Sub-Commander Vex in the engineering section, working with a team of human technicians on a new ship design. The ship looked nothing like the brutal warships of the old hegemony. It was sleek and elegant, built for exploration and defense rather than conquest. "How are you adapting, Vex?" Krex asked. "Better than I expected, Commander. The humans are teaching us to build ships that can do more than just destroy things. This design can fight if necessary, but it's mainly meant for scientific research and peaceful exploration." Krex nodded. "The humans have a saying, 'The best weapon is one you never have to use.' I'm beginning to understand what they mean." That evening, Krex attended a meeting of the Reformed Coalition Council. The meeting was held in a great hall on Earth, with representatives from every species in the galaxy. At the head of the table sat President Lisa Campbell, the human leader, who had guided the galaxy through its transformation. The quarterly reports show excellent progress, President Campbell announced. Trade is up 30% across all sectors. Scientific cooperation has led to breakthrough discoveries in medicine, energy, and space travel. Most importantly, we haven't had a single military conflict in 3 months. An elderly Keltari diplomat raised one of his forearms. President Campbell, how long do you think this peace will last? In the past, peace never lasted more than a few decades. Campbell smiled. Ambassador Kelt, this peace is different. It's not based on treaties or agreements that can be broken. It's based on education and understanding. Every species in the galaxy now knows exactly what war with a properly prepared opponent would cost them. A young Nexari representative spoke up. But what if new threats come from outside our galaxy? What if other hegemonies like the Vorthak try to invade? Then we'll educate them too, Campbell said simply. Dr. Mark Thompson's new department has been working on that problem. Dr. Thompson stood up. He was a tall, thin man with kind eyes and a gentle manner. We've sent exploration teams beyond the galactic rim, looking for other civilizations that might pose a threat. But our mission isn't to conquer or destroy them. It's to teach them what we've learned here. And what's that? Asked the Keltari ambassador. That cooperation is more powerful than conquest. That a galaxy working together can achieve more than any empire built on fear. Thompson activated a holographic display showing the galaxy and the space beyond it. We've already made contact with 3 other civilizations. All of them were planning to expand into our galaxy eventually. After we demonstrated our capabilities and explained our philosophy, they've all asked to join our educational programs instead. Commander Krex leaned forward. You're spreading the human peace beyond our galaxy? Not the human peace, President. Campbell corrected. The galactic peace. Humans didn't create this peace alone. We prepared for war, yes, but the peace belongs to all of us. The meeting continued late into the night, with representatives sharing stories of cooperation and progress from their home worlds. Former enemies were now working together on projects that would have been impossible before. After the meeting, Krex walked through the gardens outside the council building. The Earth night was beautiful, with stars shining down on the peaceful planet. He found President Campbell sitting on a bench, looking up at the sky. President Campbell, he said, sitting down beside her. May I ask you something? Of course, Commander. Did you really spend 1,000 years preparing for war just to create peace? Campbell was quiet for a long moment. Commander, do you know what the most important lesson in all of human history is? What? That the only way to truly end war is to make it so expensive and difficult that no one wants to try it. Peace through strength, as we used to say. Krex thought about this. But you could have used that strength to conquer the galaxy. You could have built an empire like the hegemony. We could have, Campbell agreed. But what would have been the point? Empires always fall eventually. But education lasts forever. So, you spent 1,000 years learning how to fight so you could teach everyone else not to fight? Exactly. Campbell smiled. The best victory is the one that makes future victories unnecessary. 10 years later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in front of a classroom at the Galactic Military Academy. His students were young beings from across the galaxy and beyond. Humans, Vorthak, Keltari, Nexari, and even some from the civilizations beyond, the Rim. Today, he began, we're going to study the most important battle in galactic history. It wasn't the biggest battle, or the longest, or the most destructive. It was important because it was the last battle we ever had to fight. A young human student raised her hand. Captain Morrison, why was it the last battle? Jake smiled. Because after that battle, everyone in the galaxy understood a simple truth. It's much easier to solve problems by talking and learning than by fighting and destroying. But what if someone doesn't want to talk? Asked a Vorthak student. Then we educate them, Jake said. We show them exactly what fighting with us would cost them, and we show them how much better their lives could be, if they choose cooperation instead. An older student, one of the beings from beyond the rim, spoke up. Captain, is it true that humans spent 1,000 years preparing for a war that lasted only one day? It's true, Jake confirmed. But those 1,000 years weren't wasted. They gave us the knowledge and strength to end all wars. Not just one war. He turned to write on the board behind him. Remember this lesson. The best way to prepare for war is to make war unnecessary. The strongest defense is making enemies into friends. The greatest victory is the one that makes all future victories unnecessary. The students wrote down his words carefully. They came from dozens of different worlds and species, but they were all learning the same lesson that humans had spent a millennium understanding. Outside the classroom windows, ships from across the galaxy moved peacefully through space. They carried scientists, artists, teachers, and explorers, not conquerors or warriors. The galaxy was at peace, not because war was impossible, but because everyone had learned that peace was better. In his office that night, Jake looked out at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there, exploration teams were making contact with new civilizations, teaching them what the galaxy had learned. The human peace, now simply called the peace, was spreading beyond the galaxy itself. 1,000 years of preparation had led to one day of battle. That one day of battle had led to a peace that might last forever, and that, Jake thought, was the greatest victory humanity had ever won.